Yeah, we're live. Hello, everyone.
Hey everyone, welcome to the AI Amigos show. Right, this is Jin Chao and James. Marina, unfortunately, was not able to make it today. She was unavoidably detained, so she'll be with us next week, right, Jin Chao?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
What do you mean detained?
I mean, she couldn't make it.
Okay.
Not detained like by the police, nothing like that.
Oh, all right. Okay.
No, it's nothing like that. It's sorry, that's probably a very um, American term anyway. So.
Okay. No,
Means
I
to
was
say like
worried
you were
for a
busy doing
second.
something else you couldn't get away from.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was
that's
worried for a second. Ooh, that's not what she said.
yeah. Everyone can ask her next week and see what she says. Yes,
Yeah,
when
yeah.
she's here, and or send a
And
message
even
there.
just pop on the comments when we're even offline. She will explain what's happened.
Yeah. Well, I mean, today we're going to be talking about
Mm,
MCP, and
yeah,
if for those that are watching either live or on recording after,
yeah,
in the section there, if you click on more, you'll see a link to a document that Jin Chao has put together for us. Tell
yeah.
us about this document, Jin Chao.
Yeah, talk about documents, right? I hate document, but we'll put a one together. So yeah, in the description is the popular topic now these days after agent, after prompt, and now is MCP. So the documentation written in a way and not very technical, so should be easy to understand. Understand what is MCP in the generative AI world.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we see like agents and MCP. I think when we see the large language models when it was first released, it was like this big thing, and it's like
Mhm.
very much, let's call it like a very broad thing, right?
Yeah,
And very general. And then now everything that's coming out is to make it very nuanced and specific to use cases, like to my company, my situation, not
yeah,
everyone's situation.
yeah.
Because there's a saying. Speaking of sayings, it's saying is like you're jack of all trades but master of none. So meaning you do a bunch of stuff okay, but you don't do any big thing well. And
Yeah,
I think
that's
that's where the LLM is at, right?
yeah, for LLM probably a bit different, right? Because for us, you wanted to be an expert in one area to get better pay. But for LLM is better you know everything.
Yeah,
Put out there, right? So yeah. And
yeah,
then I think from a kind of progressing standpoint of view from what we have the LLM and the progressing is like people is try to i- in the other word is business try to integrate the LLM into the business. So the
yeah.
progressing from that, from the prompt to agent until now, is basically progressing on this integration route, right?
Mm, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so it's very interesting at the moment. And then I see a woman explain it, what is MCP, but I don't think she explained it correctly on a TikTok kind of way. But there are much more to it. What she said is she's trying to describe as like those non-code platform. You can
yeah.
have Zapier, make all that, right? So
And yeah,
every
yeah,
time you make a little transaction note and then you point to the next and point to the next and
yeah.
a kind of linear kind of way, right? One line and going through from beginning to the end. But this MCP, if you build a server or code this thing, is supposed to do kind of like a third person. You just contact it, and then it can find it to available to it to the host to the server, and then find all the LLM available to him, and then it can proceed all those tasks in one go and give you a return. So yeah.
So are you saying like if you think about it, if you have like if you have a task to do and you've got let's say four or five different
Mm,
agents as such, right? So you say,
Yes.
I've got
Yes.
5 agents, and every agent is, and this is where, and we talked about this before, like it's AGI, right? So
Yeah.
it's one
Yeah.
agent going back and forth,
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
can check in and say, you didn't do what I wanted to do. So if we're doing all of this, this is, and you're saying, a very linear way, right? So it's agent
Yeah.
1, agent 2, agent 3, agent 4, agent
Yeah.
5.
Yeah.
What's going to be the difference here of, in when you look at the
Yeah.
MC?
So when you look at this way, it's basically your MCP is a router, let's say a router. Basically the request going to it, and then the server itself will go to the tools underneath it, let's say AI agents, to
Yes.
figure out what it needs to do to complete this task.
Okay.
So it will go out and talk to, let's say, okay, the user, for example, the user asks, what's the weather tomorrow? Underneath is still kind of like the same as a function. So what's the weather today? And then this model gets, this MCP server get the request. Okay, so what do I have? Do I have a function called weather? Or, okay, there is one. Let me request that. So the function is AI agent, basically grab something from internet, and the information comes back. I says, okay, this is the information. And now do I need it to go to the other agent to do something, some task? If it doesn't, just give it back to the customer. So yeah.
Well, I
So
mean, I was going to say, in regards to that, like you're saying there, Jinshao, is if you think about, going to get the weather. So one of the things you could do, well, I think of several things you can do there, is you can do, like, I've used the N8N, and so I know you have as well, and I've used as well, the LangChain. And so
yeah,
when you want to get something from the internet, you have to create this node with credentials to get to the internet,
yeah,
whether you use Google or
yeah,
DuckDuckGo or whatever search engine you use, and it will go and grab this and come back. Where I think with the MCP, you don't need that, number one. And
right,
secondly, as well as we have APIs, and maybe for those who don't know what APIs are, like I use a lot of APIs like stock market data. So,
yeah,
go get me prices of what the stock market is, and then it will give you that information, and then
yeah,
you can run it through your models to
yeah,
back test it to see your strategy and whatever. Where if you're doing this in the with MCP, it's all integrating that.
yes, yes.
So that
So
way you get your data, and you get your stock, your search engine, whichever it may be, from the internet,
yeah,
and then brings all of this stuff and then gives it to the appropriate agent. Is that
yeah.
right?
So MCP you can achieve, let's say, the like your stock market thing, it actually can trade it for you now. Or
Yeah.
so that's this big thing about from Anthropic, right? They have this desktop agent, kind of like when you type in things or give a task, it can start doing tasks on your computer. It can control different things on your computer, run bash, open things. um, i I think the OpenAI has the same thing called, it's called task or something like that, but I don't have the, I don't print a premium version now. I think they have a section of that. Just you can define any task you want to do in the computer. It would do it for you instead
It'll
of,
run it, it'll run it locally, in other words.
yes, yes. But at the inside of it is kind of mixed with, it's an example, and MCP, right?
Right.
It has LLM you talk to, and then produce some code. Maybe it can control the computer. If it's wanted to control the browser, it has maybe a module, a
Okay.
tool underneath it. So yeah, it's very much depend on what tool it has underneath it. So that part you can build yourself. Yeah,
Yeah. This is very interesting. I mean, because I think as well, it's speak more about integration,
yeah,
integrating a lot of different. I mean, when you have a lot of data, metadata that you need to collect, this is going to do that. And as well, like if you think about, we've had this discussion before, like some are better than coding than others. Like, how does it pick which LLM to use? Let's see, for example, does it do I think you were talking about, like, for example, we talked. It was a couple of weeks ago that we talked about this, where the let's leave it at 3.7. It's
Oh
got.
yeah, Claude 3.7,
Oh,
right?
thank you. The cloud was escaping my. I couldn't grab the word there for a second, but the
Yeah,
cloud 3.7 is good for programming, and then
yeah,
so when you have an agent that does a certain thing, so like we said, mentioned the 1 through 5, and you have,
yeah,
let's say, as you said, somebody comes back with a code, or it's doing something with a code.
yeah.
Cloud 3.7. How do you know? I've seen a lot of the stuff now where they're doing like a kind of like an aggregator, where you put the prompt in and then you select from a drop down which one you want to use.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to maybe use DeepSeek, or I want to use
Yeah,
Claude, or you want to
yeah.
use. So is that something that's running inside MCP?
Yeah, that's a very good point. So it gives the tools, it gives us all the different LLM model accessing, right? That's really good point, because if if you code this LLM at the very beginning when we started, you have to use each company's different kind of request format. You know, like a DeepSeek is one kind of, and a Claude like those uh, bracket more, and OpenAI like curly bracket. You know, it's all different.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, this is kind of setting the standards. Basically, let's say it's like a community. What I can see this is the standard is I think Anthropic has set up the standard, and then they use JSON, RPC or whatever. It's kind of REST API, I think. So the standard being set, just imagine like people making those modules you can
yeah.
use later on, right? It will be a lot easy to integrate. And I help the company as well. To they don't need it to change their code that much if they adopt a different model or something, right? Which
Yeah.
initially before was like LangChain was really helpful because you just install that package, and then the request format is similar. But this is like kind of another step ahead
Yeah.
to just to not
Well, I mean, it's
just
another
this.
step to integration, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's integration. So talking about integration, yeah, it's all about integration now, isn't it? Like the all
Yeah.
new Google stuff is all integrated into everything now. Like the new Google's, the new model is
Yeah.
really impressive as well.
Gemini one.
Yeah, the Gemini 2.5 they call it. They have deep research model now, and
Wow.
it's really
Well,
cool.
I mean, you were talking earlier about standardization, and I think that's one of the MCP is they're calling it the USB-C,
Yes.
and it will work across different platforms as such, and that's a really good analogy of thinking of that, because like I've used both N8 and LangChain, and anytime, like, let's say if I wanted to connect to my Google Drive, or I've connected to, let's say, my OneDrive.
Yeah.
You got to go in, and then you can connect. I've connected with DeepSeek, and I've connected with I've actually connected with Claude as well, and OpenAI. And you
Mhm.
got, in order to integrate with their APIs, you have to go and get the keys and put the
Yeah.
keys in the right place, and you can the key place to store your keys. And this is, I think, where gets, for those that are non-technical people, a little bit of a challenge of, how do I do this? But yourself, once you get it all set up, it's up and running. And I think that's probably where MCP is saying, how can we make this a seamless, easy, um, this model context protocol, to make it easy to integrate with, internet search or
Yeah.
data points, and being able to do more.
Yeah, it's much more sustainable, right,
Yeah,
for business to adapt, if you have the same standard.
yeah,
And then it's definitely making like the infrastructure like me, like a guy like me, is easier to manage as well. I think we talk about the aspect of security as well, right, on this.
yeah,
So yeah, there is. I think there's a layer of security because you use REST API. So it might be it could be more secured.
yeah,
On that top, you can have different authentication methods. And that give you another layer of kind of security, how you kind of manage your the whole platform security that way, instead of you have all those keys access everything. So we don't need it to access the key. The key can be part of system, but from what you're making the request to the system, you can have different authentication and all that. So it's easier to manage that way. Yeah.
Yeah, because that could definitely be a security point, and you have different endpoints that can be unsecure, and how do you ensure that all of them are secure? Because
Mhm.
if they get in one place, they can get into all of it, right?
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, this is MCP basically on a high level.
Yeah. Well, listen, as well with I was looking at the way it can work and integrate. So let's say, for example, you want an AI agent or AI to integrate with, let's say, a CRM system, or a CRM like a client relationship management system like Salesforce or something. You can use MCP, and that wasn't Anthropic that started MCP, wasn't it? Who was it that
Yeah.
it was Anthropic? Yeah.
That's they created a standard for it. So everyone so far is following it at the moment. So
Yeah, so it's like you can use it to pull up records, to change records, to delete records in the CRM, even schedule follow-up actions, and it's doing this through its NLP inside the system. So I mean, it is a pretty amazing. I think it's another, as you were saying earlier, another advance. Removing it's another
yeah,
advancement to, again, integration into the business world, because that's the whole thing, is how is business going to use this, and the only way is through integration, to make it easy to integrate with systems. And I think that's a big issue in regards to, that systems can't communicate. They're in
yeah,
different languages, different outputs. And what I mean by languages, I'm not talking about, one speaks English and one speaks French. It's
yeah,
different programming, and different. So like you mentioned JSON earlier, what if it comes out in a different format? How do
yeah.
we make that fit with our format? It's a very very difficult thing, and even difficult to navigate. And that's where I see, as you say, MCP is going to be able to work through all of that. That's pretty amazing stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like for me, is like before when you're making a request, sometimes troubleshoot, oh, the request is different, or this model need different format of requesting and all that. And it's like somebody built a platform for you to do easier things, right? We can see from NAN, somebody built those little modules for you. You can just
Yeah,
drag and drop.
they
This
have a
is
lot of templates as well. Yeah.
Yes. So this is kind of like that. So here you go. Here's a framework. Here's the input and output. What kind of protocol you're following? Let's build stuff into it. There's a case I see someone building kind of a coding agent, right? So
Yeah.
what it was doing, it got a layer of uh, kind of hierarchy, right? So what I mean by that is, uh, so when you code, he used some cheap version. I mean cheap, like a smaller, like a 8 bits or something cheaper in token wise you pay for
Okay. Yeah.
when you
Okay.
code. And there will be a moment he can't figure out what was wrong. So it elevated to the more expensive and bigger complex version to resolve the problem they has. So
Hmm.
this is a use kind of way. You don't need it. Remember I told you I was trying to create like an app using Sona 3. Is it Sona 3.5? Within 5 minutes or 6 minutes, I ran like already $5.
Yeah.
Just because, yeah, just because the content is getting really, really big. Oh, we got someone say hi here. Let
Hey,
me
Jack.
share it. Jack.
Hey,
Hi,
Jack.
Jack.
Mhm. We're talking about MCP here. So if you have any questions, feel free to interact and ask
Yeah.
us any questions that you may have.
Um,
But yeah, so you developed it, but you said you ran out $5 and what, in a second?
No, a second. Once it's finished the developing itself,
Yeah.
but turns out I was very early days of using the kind of like, what was the term? Natural language to code. So
Oh,
that's the thing. There's a part I didn't thought I need, but
right.
I do need like after like a week or two, I threw away that whole version because I didn't thought about.
You didn't think about that, yeah.
Yeah,
Jack's asking there is what is MCP?
yeah,
So Jack, we've got, if you look at what we discuss a bit about it, and we can discuss a bit more. But if you look at the link there that you joined us, there should be, if you click on the more, you'll see there's a document that we put on there, and basically it's basic MCP is Model Context Protocol, which is the USB-C standardization of integration of communicating internet data, things that bring into the model, because the large language models, like a lot of people use ChatGPT, what they use it for, to write emails. But it's like you put it there and then you paste it and whatever. This will be able to start integrating things to communicate very easily.
yeah. And then the why is big is because it set up a standard, so it make programmers a lot easier to get a system integrated. So it's from Anthropic it set up this standard called MCP. So you use JSON R20, I think RPC protocol, if I'm correctly. Yeah, but that's the documentation we get together, written in a non-technical way. So we hope we can bring the information to everyone.
Well, I mean, you know how it's called the USB-C, and I think it's a very good analogy or a good way to explain it. And the reason I'm saying is, like, now everything's going to USB-C, but like, before it's like, oh, I have an Android phone. Oh no, I need an iPhone charger. Oh, I don't have an iPhone charger. I have an Android charger, or the other way around. And so you weren't able to, you had to go different places, ask different people for the charger for your phone, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Where I think here is the issue, or the big part of MCP is that, you ask these questions, or in the software, it doesn't connect very well. But it's no longer, oh, that only works in here and it only works there. It brings all of that in together into one. And I think one of the things in the document that you were talking about there, Jin Shao, was the development times. To develop an app or develop a software or ideas, it's going to run much faster.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I can see this because this is a problem in the kind of software world, right? Everyone code differently, so they need some standard set. Let's say this is a standard for GenAI stuff, so everybody follows that. It will be a lot easier. Let's say I develop a module, you can install into your MCP. Basically says, oh, my one can choose the best lottery numbers, whatever.
Hopefully nobody's using it for lottery numbers, in Chow.
Okay, but like that's what I mean. You can
I know what you mean, though. I get it. Yeah.
You can integrate it easily. So standard is very important. This is gonna help the development time, especially a lot of business, right? We're thinking about the question is, oh, the model. Like, oh, I used OpenAI last year, but now I want to use DeepSeek and all that. So a lot of the code, if you're using their own SDK, there's problems, right? Request has been different, and this kind of help as well. So if you write a kind of MCP module inside with OpenAI, you can easily switch to other ones. The good example is James mentioned early on, right? So at the drop-down menu, you can code IDE. You can see the option. You can choose DeepSeek. You can choose Google. You can choose Claude. That's exactly how they integrated.
Yeah, because I mean, as you're saying there, if you developed some software and it works with OpenAI, and let's say it took you a year, it took the IT team and everyone a year to integrate it and develop it, and then you find out that another model is better, and you want to change from OpenAI to, let's say, DeepSeek.
Yeah,
it's going to take some time to rewrite. I mean, the code is obviously there, but it's still going to take time to make that code work with DeepSeek or Claude or Gemini or whoever you use. And you have to go back to, not back to the drawing board, but you have to go back to your code, and then that's Where if you're using MCP, the model context protocol, then as you're saying there, where you just say, okay, well, we've written this code, we've written our agents, the 5 agents we talked about earlier, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I want to change this now to something else. It's a matter of just clicking something and it's done. It's not going to take the entire developmental cycle.
Definitely. I mean, I probably made a bad example, right? Moving OpenAI to DeepSeek. I mean, DeepSeek completely copied the package of OpenAI. You just change the URL of the API point.
I'm going to say nothing, Jin Chao.
Yeah, so it's open. Let's say OpenAI move to cloud or move to Google will be different because the SDK package will be different. Yeah,
yes.
that's the bad example on moving to DeepSeek. So you just literally change the URL and that's it.
Okay, well, fair enough. I mean, it is interesting, and I mean, if you think about like someone was saying to us, or someone was saying to me recently about AI, that they've been using AI, that AI, it's like it's new, and it's like, no, AI is not new. It's been around since the 1940s. I mean, Alan Turing is considered the godfather of AI.
Yeah.
The only thing that is new is that it's what's new is the accessibility of making it to everyone. And I hate using this terminology, but it's like it's been democratized, because to me it's like democratized. What does that mean? I think probably the better word would be decentralized. So if you think of like blockchain, that's been decentralized. So where only a few had it, now everyone can have, and it's been decentralized. And this AI has not been decentralized, meaning everyone has access to it and can develop it into their own organizations and become more productive. And so we went from LLM, let's say 2021, no, maybe 2020, no, it was 2022. I remember it's 2022. Yeah, because I remember I was going to fly to Texas, and I was telling, there was a kid sitting next to me, and I was telling him, hey, check this out. And on my phone, I said, you should download this. This is going to be great. And he was like, nobody really knew what it was.
Yeah.
And then it's become more famous. And then we've gone to AI agents, and now we got MCP. So again, it's just making it easier, because the productivity gains are not going to be done if we can't do it. We can't run it in an organization.
Yeah, definitely. I think the shocking moment when I used like OpenAI, I think it's GPT-3, right?
Yeah.
And then I start using it. I think what was the case? I think it's a code or something. Ask him to write a code, and I writing the code. But we see now it's all rubbish, right? But like at the time, it's like, whoa, the whole thing, like, because a lot of time, I think a friend of ours, Paul, I mentioned the other day, the regex is a good example. Regex, the format is extremely hard to learn. It's it's kind of filtering system. You extracted the data out of some JSON string, right? But now with the kind of GenAI, you can pick it really quick. It can write the exactly right format, because I spend a long time to troubleshoot from time to time, just regex. If I can not using it, I would, but because it's so efficient. We get another comment, right? Jack asked.
Reading about the history of the AI in regards to, like we were talking about, Alan Turing and such.
Yeah.
But I was gonna say, I was working on some code the other day, Chao, and we talk about, like, with AI, it doesn't use critical thinking, and we talk about critical thinking. And so I was writing this code, and basically was using Python to create an HTML file using D3 JavaScript. And so what it does is it pasting together strings in Python.
Yeah.
And so in there, I was chatting with ChatGPT. I needed to filter some data to show into a plot. And then it says, oh, we'll use this regex. And it was like, so I went and changed it in the HTML file in the DOM locally, and it worked perfect. And then I then put that script, or that bit of into the code, and it would give me an error every time, because I'm putting this regex inside a script. So I was like, well, what do I do now? And I was like, telling him, give me this, and it just wouldn't work. It just wouldn't work, and it wouldn't work. And then I just thought to myself, I know what I need to do. The selection that's coming there. So I duplicated my my data and stack them
Mhm.
on top of each other, and then
Mhm.
just put the filter on one and filter on the other, and it worked. And I just like, I had to think this, but it took me a while to kind of, not a while, but I guess what took me longer was it's like I was thinking that ChatGPT or
Mhm.
what was going to do it, if you know what
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
and or even Claude I was using, and it didn't, and it was just having to understand how it
Yeah.
works. But equally, as you're saying there, like with the regex, that's what brought it to my memory. Equally with the regex, like understanding the regex inside there, that takes a while.
Mhm.
So, and I know you mentioned before, it's great for creating new code, but it's not good at debugging existing code.
Yeah, it really depends on. So I had experiences with called Clean, CLINE. It's an adapter, kind of plug in into your normal VS Code.
Right?
So the problem with that is you have to know what you're creating at very early stage and give a plan of what you're creating in
Yeah.
details, and then you can put this into any like complex models, ask him to review it, and then find the issue you might have. So they might reading on different software you use and it's not right. It
Yeah.
was just new ones. You have the new plan. So make sure your plan as good as possible and then put into that. And to create, it was okay. But when troubleshooting is another story because if you have a complex project, your code base is large. What the cleaning attempt to do is they read every file if you don't mention the file and push it
Oh,
together
yeah.
into one large text and pump it. So each time you could, if you use Claude, right, Sonar 3.5 or 3.7, every time it could be vary from a couple cents to I say 50 cents before as well. So it catching the history, always constantly using that. So that leads to another question. The cursor I've been using all the time. I love cursor. I don't know how they did it, but like for $20, you can use as much as you want. That's amazing.
Well, I think
Uh,
you said slow. It doesn't end it. It slows you down, right? It
yeah,
doesn't get
you got so yeah. So whatever the $20 has is 500 fast response, and then and all the rest is slow response. But slow response, it's not like you sit there for 5 minutes. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
just says is
It's just not as fast.
yeah, it's not as fast. But by the way, this is not promotion for Cursor. But if they wanted to pay us some money, I would love
I'll
to have
take it.
it.
I'll
Yeah,
take it.
but yeah, but just this is just the kind of my experiences, right? So
Yeah.
I've been using it all the time. And then what is troubleshooting is you can ask, or you can use AI agent. So the cursor is kind of this IDE is idea of MCP.
Yes.
So it control your local file as well. You can create a file, delete file, set up file, and then show all sort of stuff. Yeah, and then I was using that is to troubleshoot most of the time. So I kind of pick up how those things work. But what's smart for Cursor is when you ask a question about code base, it index all the code somehow. I don't know how. I didn't really see the code behind it. So it index it, search all the places, index it, and then you can respond a lot faster. Yeah.
That's
So.
interesting because I mean, like I've used, and again, not as you said, not sponsored.
Mhm.
It's not code, but I was using SlideSpeak,
Yeah.
and SlideSpeak was a you would. So what I would do was I would put together some slides, let's say on a book that I have, and you would say, okay, I want you to talk about one, two, three, and I upload the book, but the one, two, three was let's say in chapter 3, and it would write you something about all 10 chapters, for example.
Yeah.
And then this was like, no, I don't want chapters 1 to 2 and 4 to 10. I just want chapter 3, and it just wouldn't do it. So in the end, what I had to do was my PDF print the chapter 3 only, upload this, and interact with that only, and that made it really difficult. But it's
Mhm.
kind of like you're saying, it looks at everything and it grabs from all areas rather than very specific areas that you're telling it. where now, as you're saying, it's indexing and finding the specific areas. Because I mean, coding, as you know, if someone says, "Well, how do you fix this?" And it's like, well, it depends. What does it depend on? Your infrastructure. What's your ecosystem? You can't just go, right. That's the ecosystem that works for everybody, because everyone has a different ecosystem. And so, how does the AI pick up on that?
Yeah, and then still the AI is not like 100%. So whenever I do the cursor, I have to read whatever it output very carefully, and I have to understand what's my code base already, and not just once, multiple times. I said, why don't we do that? You don't need to create this. It says, and I read about it. Oh yeah, you're absolutely right. Let's do it the other way. So you have to be very careful on it. So it's not really like, the you can code it and they can just, let's say if someone on the street says, let me create an app about a website like online trading. There's no way. There's no way. And I mean, so it gets things wrong from time to time. You really have to watch that. This is like the smartest version, like Sona 3.7. So
Yeah.
you have that problem.
Well, I think as well is that, like you're saying there, it's great for idea generation. Maybe it's something you didn't think about, and like, oh yeah, I find it very good for documenting my code. So there is some definite really good uses for it, and I think this MCP conversation will continue. We're running on here almost 40 minutes. Thanks, Jack, for joining us. Next week we should be. We'll determine if we're going to be whether Tuesday or Wednesday, but we'll let you guys know.
Yeah.
But apart from that, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you guys next week. Thanks, and ciao.
Thank you. Bye now. And end.